with Greet Jans and Remy Brooks, Joint Managing Director and co-CEOs of Future Platforms, on the latest instalment of the Xcede Sofa series. Today we're here to explore the concept of co-leadership and delve into how diverse perspectives lead to modern problem solving when running a digital agency. So first and foremost, Greet, Remy, thank you very much for joining me here today. It's great to have you here with us for this podcast. I wonder if you could start by kicking us off by giving me, I guess, a bit of an introduction to yourself and your background kind of leading up to where we are today.
Yeah, I can start. So I'm Greet. I have worked in design my entire life. I'm a trained industrial designer who directly after graduating in Belgium, that's quite normal. You go from high school to university and then you start working, which is a bit different than here. Started working into an innovation center linked to a university and I rolled into digital. It was at that point between choosing in designing glasses, hardware, eyewear glasses, or going into digital, like in palm-top devices and things like that. And I'm bored quite easily, so I went into digital, got trained in usability and web development directly, and then did just a career in design, like in going to an advertising agency, going in-house and freelancing along the way before moving to London and joining Publicis Sapient, and they're going in the typical design path. I think the biggest shift was in 4 or 5 years ago when I also got a business training in it, and coincidentally the role at Future Platforms came up then. In 2 years ago, the shift went from doing pure design into co-leading the business, and the rest is quite known.
Amazing.
So that's my part.
And Remy, a bit of a background for you.
So where did I start? I started in PR randomly. So I discovered that I struggled to, I used to have to get people to come to events, and I struggled to call literally 3,000 people to get them to come to them. So eventually I left that, ended up working in startups in a world of kind of account management. But it was in the digital space. So we were doing digital training for agencies all over the world. So our clients were people like Leo Burnett and Saatchi, etc. So we were training them on search and social media and mobile when these things were quite new, and big data when it was like first a buzzword. Google was our biggest client, and they asked us to create a training platform which we could kind of roll out to all of their global agency clients. And I put my hand up to say I can do that. That led me to designing, developing a digital platform from the ground. Since then, I've been kind of agency side. So I was an experienced strategist, then a strategist, then a head of strategy, and then I landed at Future Platforms as head of strategy a couple of years ago, and eventually that's kind of evolved into co-leading the agency.
Amazing. No, it's great to hear kind of the journey you've been on there. Great. I was going to say, I know you kind of get involved with quite a lot of extracurricular groups, as it were, and mentorship programs. I spotted you'd recently launched the Women's Leaders Forum. I wondered how that's going, and I guess any highlights from your extracurricular activities as well as the agency side.
So I didn't launch the Women Leadership Forum. That is a woman who called Angie, who has launched that and who does that amazingly. But I have been involved right from the beginning that it started. I think she found 25 women, if I'm correct, to come and really be directly there from the start and help shape what this is about as a result from Chief leaving the market. She also has been involved in Women in Tech or one of those kind of organizations, and really saw a niche in having a network for in females who in all are at a particular kind of same-ish spot in their career, because they all do similar kind of leadership challenges in the digital business, and taking from there to help each other and other women who want to come there, which is a nice thing. But yeah, I think I've always been involved in design kind of initiatives, in the NAV, VMIME, those kind of things. In the last few years, I also took the shift as much, I think, for myself as for others to get involved into to female leadership. It's just quite nice. People say it as a cliche. Like for me, when I did mentorship, you always get something back out of it. But like in what does women leadership groups have given me back is probably like in more than I could have imagined than any of the other things that I have done extracurricularly. So I can highly recommend for people to find groups like that and make them work.
Perfect. That's great to hear a little bit more. Nice to see like women supporting women and all the different extra bits that you're giving out there into the space. But yeah, no, that's brilliant. It's good to hear kind of a little bit of background, and I guess that brings us to you both being at Future Platforms. You call leadership slightly unusual concept, but I guess how did that come about in the end? How did kind of this merging of minds happen?
I think the thing is that's even more unusual is that we joined Future Platforms within like 3-4 weeks from each other without knowing each other, having met each other, which we only found out afterwards. Like I do love a bit of a serendipity. We must have been at a certain pub multiple times, kind of thing. So we have like if this would be a movie and like there were like hidden cameras, you will see enough moments where we actually met in real life without knowing each other and ever speak to each other. We found that out after, but like we met 4 years ago. I joined 3-4 weeks after Remy, both in design and strategy kind of role. People noticed we worked well together, and then when the previous CEO left, we were asked to take the role together. And even though I don't think it is something we would have navigated to, that was the one thing that somehow didn't came as a surprise. I can only speak for myself. I didn't think it would go wrong, but I couldn't have imagined how easy and how well it has gone down the line. To which point, as I'm very vocal about it, I could not imagine not doing it with somebody, and I'm quite lucky that it works that well. It's just half answering your question, so Remy could just answer it proper. But sometimes you meet people in your career and it's an obvious kind of thing and you see, oh, you gel in a certain way and you seek it out. In this case, it is proper serendipity of we didn't really sought to find each other out. And then on top of that, we did work amazingly together, but we didn't navigate the scene on, and now we're going to take this role together, which is then even a weird thing because it's not that common yet that people take roles together, and especially not how we do it, but that's going into detail.
So we met in COVID, which was another important thing, or interesting thing. So we didn't actually meet like physically for a year and a half, maybe, nearly 2 years.
Forever.
It was forever. Actually, and that was like weird, where you're like, do we shake hands now? Because we've been on so many calls together for literally years, talking to each other. So that is kind of like it's like built a relationship during COVID, kind of over Zoom and Google Meet. And then when we were asked to run the company, like there was an interesting moment where it was kind of like we got to a place where we were fine with whatever the other person decided to do. It was kind of like, whatever your call is, I'll back you, and vice versa. And when we both said we're going all in, then we went all in, which has been, and it's been great since then.
Had you met in person then before you were asked to co-run the agency, or you made the decision to co-run it still in the lockdown COVID time?
No, we had met in person. I think what Remy's thinking too is that now, of course, we can be in the room together without it being asked. But what is so weird is, and it was for both of us, which makes it even odder. I think we had very personal conversations, and those we met in COVID in lockdowns. Remy went also through lockdown, and myself, we both had moved into a house, actually not far from each other, but none of these things matter. But we had a lot of conversations, at the beginning, the typical work conversations, but then because you're in Zoom, we actually had quite deep conversations and got to know each other quite well. So then all of a sudden meet face to face, which both of us didn't expect to. But there were, first of all, lockdown rules. So there was even there's certain standards where it is that you need to still, when we met, it was still you need to put masks on outside, but then inside the masks can drop. So there was even a bit of a physical distance that was required, and you know each other, but you also there was a 3D effect to it, even that both of us didn't consider.
Yeah, I always found it weird when you met colleagues out of lockdown and you'd met them all on Zoom and you kind of expected them to be a certain height and then you'd be like, oh, you're so much taller than I expected. But no, it's a nice story of how you guys kind of bonded over COVID and then have then developed this co-leadership. I think a lot of people would be quite interested to understand, I guess, that dynamic and how that works day to day. Do you kind of, it's very much a joint decision on everything, or do you take ownership of certain things and responsibilities, and one of you takes the lead on in one area and the other an area? How does that look from a day-to-day operational perspective?
So it's maybe unusual in that we don't formally split the role at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, well, we get a ton of questions about that, and people, I think, assume that would slow us down massively.
Yeah.
But it's kind of actually been the opposite, in that rather than us kind of somebody asking us a question or we've got to make a decision, like we speak literally every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So we're constantly in a kind of back and forth dialogue, solving problems, talking to people in the team, talking to clients. And we, rather than go, you go do this bit of the business, I'll go do this bit of the business. It's almost like having a partner in crime who you're like, cool, what do we do on this part of the business? What do we do on this part of the business? If one of us is out, we trust each other, like kind of quite fundamentally, to make the right call. And even if we would have disagreed on that call, we will still back that decision at the time. Like that's the really interesting thing of like having someone who has your back in the decision-making process. And I think the thing that's interesting for me anyway, when you like compare it to, I've had a lot of conversations with people who are running companies themselves or running businesses themselves, and they don't have a partner in crime to just be like, can I just check in with you on this? Can I have a conversation with you about that? And they kind of, it can often feel quite lonely.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel like that on a day-to-day basis. It feels quite natural to have somebody who I can just talk to about the decision making and direction kind of every day as we move forwards.
And yeah, you've always got that person to bounce your ideas off. It's lonely at the top, isn't it? Everyone always says it. I guess for you guys, you don't really have that position, so that's a nice position to be in. And Brie, is it similar from your side of things there?
It is. We are actually surprised how little we disagree, and if we actually disagree, it's not even of we have an unspoken understanding where we can't disagree in public. We often then more talk it out because we want to really understand the other one's perspective. Like if we've taken it even as a learning, and like in both of us, we have a lot of things that we are complementary on anyways. Like, and I think business-wise, but also personality-wise, we have similar-ish kind of values which align very well, which make that easy. But of course, we're different people. We have different backgrounds. Some of the things are the obvious things you can see. Some of the things are less visual from a designer going into a business perspective, while Remy going more in from a business perspective into strategy to going into business again. And the fact, of course, male, female, like in European English, like in I can name them. So if it is that we disagree, we want to see each other's perspective. And I think on the big important decisions, we challenge it, and not because it is even we don't trust the other one to make the decision, but we want to have an all-round kind of view is this the right decision, and is this backed up for the right ways? So if it's big, we go over it. That doesn't really slow it down, but it does mean that even if we would get challenged, or if we afterwards would wonder, is that the best decision, that we've really gone and thought it through from all those kind of angles. While then on smaller kind of things, or if it is, you're like in dealing with this particular business thing, therefore I run these things, then like that's fine. There are some accounts that we divide for like that people know, but then the clients and the teams know us as well, that we can actually cover.
You kind of touched on it there a little bit.
It's just funny because we have actually discussed it with other co-leaders who really do divide it, and we've seen enough articles where people kind of say it doesn't work if you don't do it. Even the team in the beginning, when we got the role, was like, in how do you do it? And the team tried to divide it, which was like in a bit of a cliche where we saw all the people issues automatically came to me, all the business decisions went to Remy, like in the proper cliche. We shut that down quite early on. No, like you contact us both, and even if we do particular things, but like in the team directly also knew if one of us says yes or approved, you don't need to wait for the other one.
Yeah, a bit early on, it was a bit like, you know, and you like try to divide and conquer with your parents, where you're like, I've asked mum, she said no, now I'm going to try with dad. Like there was a bit of that going on at really early doors, but actually quite quickly people got used to the idea of like we're not going to be able to like split them up over this thing because we talk so often. But now like functionally, go on. Okay.
But then we do know if people there isn't a hard rule where it is if it's business, people need to contact us both. If there is for whatever reason the reason why somebody feels more comfortable coming to one of us personally, that's also fine. So I think they even have that benefit. We're all human beings, that there is a certain situation you might feel more comfortable to go to Remy or to me because of a reason that is clear or unclear, and that's fine. So you have even that flexibility.
I was going to say, I mean, leadership's definitely like not the norm out there, and I can imagine in other businesses and with different people, it might kind of cause a bit of power struggle or clashes, but you guys seem to be making it work fairly effortlessly there. And I agree you touched on it in terms of that you come from different backgrounds and you've got kind of complementing skill sets. Do you think it's that kind of like different experience of life, different key skill sets that mean it's kind of more of a collaborative way of working rather than a button of heads? Or what's your take on it?
I think that definitely plays a role, but I also think it's a bit weird to say that about yourself, but I think we're fairly egoless kind of thing, and also neither of us feels the need to have a win or a score or to be seen like in that anybody in the outside world thinks, oh, you did well there, or even worse, you're the better one in this situation. Like neither of us are driven by that validation, which is quite helpful. That like we're not perfect human beings, but that is one of the things that make it possible to do it this way. And then of course there is the fact that I think we both, just because of how we are as human beings and how we grow up, I think we're actually very open to other perspectives and those kind of things already, which fuels us. That combo probably makes that work. But then again, we can also run it on by yourself. Like we have had situations where it is one of us is on holiday and you just need to do it for a stretch. I don't like it as much. But then we're trying to be very respectful as well. We know before even how much do you want to be in touch, how much do you want to be involved in this, like in those things we actually then make rules for each other and we are like in sticking to that. But it might be at this point I respect you need just some time off, but you want to know the big things so you can switch off, or actually you do want to be involved in that situation, so I quickly just check it over or just inform you of what is happening, like in those things.
It's interesting to say egoless and that side of things. I think the agency world sometimes can be a bit overly flooded with ego, so it's great to hear that you guys it's not like that, and like you say, you've got those similar values and whatnot. I'm sure it's not plain sailing every single day though. So what happens if there is a disagreement? Like how do you come to a resolution on that without, like you say, one of you getting one over on the other? Like what's that conflict resolution look like, I guess, when it does arise?
It is like, it sounds weird, but it's like really rare that we actually disagree. And we, when we do, it's actually we try to dig it. We spend quite a bit of time trying to understand why do we disagree, more than the fundamental of like, I think that's a bad idea, or why, like, I actually want to understand, like, why do you think that great? What has led you to having that opinion, and why is my opinion so different? Because we're often so aligned. So unpicking that, we can normally understand, like, get to the root cause understanding of like what is actually our difference of opinion. and then come to whether it's a compromise or coming to like, I disagree, but like, let's just go for it and see what happens. Often things aren't like, most decisions aren't like one-way doors where you can never go back on them.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of decisions are decisions where you can go, actually, like, let's try it that way, and we can always, if it doesn't work, let's go the other way. So understanding, like, having a point of view on like how important is this decision and why are we disagreeing, what's like, that's where you've got to actually, well, from our perspective anyway, you've got to spend the time to really understand why you disagree. Often it's not a fundamental disagreement. Sometimes it's just in the approach of like, I would do it this way slightly differently, or sometimes it's just in the sequence of events of how you might go, I think we should do this by this, or versus actually I would reverse it or do it in the other order. Like sometimes it's sometimes it might just be like I just don't think that's a good plan. But unpicking that's the bit we spend a lot of time talking about, I think.
But not for everything. Like there is one smaller example on like in cold sales approach that we have different opinions about, but it isn't important enough to really keep dwelling over. And I think the one benefit that we have is, even if it doesn't really work out, neither of us have that I told you so mentality or a mental stripe rule of I already gave you two, so I need to have this win now. It is one of the benefits where it is like neither of us have like good memories for some things, bad memories for other things, but we don't really keep score there, so that also helps. So there isn't even that a decision is made, we both have backed it up, and then we move on. If it was the bad decision, there isn't oh, you should have gone with mine, I told you. Like none of them nonsense kind of thing is happening, which also make the decision making process easier. It is actually, it's just a bit of a, like, let's face it, with all people in your life, you need to sometimes find compromises. I think we found an easy grown-up way to find compromises that works for us.
Nice.
But like
and I think
some things we really discuss and dwell on and then go with a decision. Some things we like, the longer you also do it, it is just we need to make a decision. This is the decision. Fine, move to the next one.
And I imagine with you guys kind of delving in and unpicking the kind of fundamentals of why the disagreement is, I guess that leads to a more well-rounded approach to whatever that disagreement was. And I mean, be it a project or whatnot, I imagine the result for the client or the team is that it's a more well thought through decision and process. So would you say that is kind of like, I guess, a benefit to be it a team member or an external client, that kind of everything that they're receiving is a little bit more well thought through and structured, and a deep dive more so perhaps than other places?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the things that Greet mentioned earlier, which is like we come from like we come from a very different backgrounds and have very different experiences. So just even understanding, oh, you think you have this thought because of, well, it's not even because of, it's just you have a different thought than I have. How do we get those two things aligned and in alignment? And it means kind of almost by default, we're considering things from more perspectives, which is, I think, genuinely a real strength. And really interesting, because you, like, in doing that unpicking and that understanding, you do get that different perspective. You go, oh, I didn't think of it that way because my brain doesn't work that way, or I don't have that experience that you've had in the past, or you've got a different kind of current reality than I've got. So by just going through that process, we're getting more almost data points on and viewpoints and kind of like that third person perspective. Oh, I didn't see it that way, even though you're looking at the same problem.
Nice, definitely.
It also changed both of us. Yeah, it also changed both of us. Somebody in a session, which I've worked in advertising agency at some point, and somebody said like in gut, greed, and rational Remy, and like because people love those particular cliches, and it isn't that much, but like I definitely am way more impulsive than Remy is, but I think by actually working this close together, Remy made me slow down at particular situations and actually sometimes take a bit of a a pause and a step, which is not that natural to be anyways. Well, I have seen him become a little bit more like in just jumping in kind of
Yeah, in the
thing. So
moment.
even that has changed things a little bit. Without actually losing who we are. We're not trying to copy each other, and we're very okay
Yeah.
with being more, definitely me, be more on the extroverted spectrum, Remy being more on the introverted spectrum, all these kind of things. But like even you see how we have changed approach towards each other in that way. We can, with the
Yeah.
weird thing
But
as, of course, because we do this a lot, we can read each other very well. So if there is something, sometimes we don't know what is going on, but we can see if one of us is off or different or however you want to call it, on a call that the other one, it visually even jumps in, and there isn't afterwards even a what was going on there or whatever. It's just it's a natural thing, to the point that the one who at that point almost needs the support thinks it's a bigger thing, but the other one solves it so fluidly that people on the other side don't even notice it. It's invisible, except for us, because it's just a
yeah. I love that. One of the things you said there, Greet, about I guess kind of like you've kind of taken a little bit of each other's characteristics in some instances. It ties into one of the questions I was going to ask you. I mean, I'm sure working together you've learned hundreds of things, but I guess if there's kind of like one kind of key thing that you'd pick out that you'd learned from each other, be it kind of a slightly different style or just like, yeah, I guess the takeaway that's really stood with you, what would that be for both of you?
For me, it's trust my gut. Like, so Greet is, like, as she said, she's a more impulsive character than I am. I'm a more of a, because my background is in like strategy, I'm more of a considered, I want to know more. I want to really have almost the perfect plan.
Yeah.
But one of the things Greet said to me really early doors was like we might have had a conversation about something. She's like, what's your hunch? What do you think the answer is? And I'll say it. And then she'll go, okay, but I know you're going to go away and do the 2 weeks worth of work to come back to the same thing that you said in the first place. So I've learned to trust more in the, like, what do I think now?
Yeah.
And then the kind of doing my slow consideration process has sped up a lot, which has been super useful and interesting for me,
Yeah.
actually. And it's been a bit of a shift, but yeah, that's the big thing I've learned.
I love that.
what I've
Greet
learned.
from
Like
your side?
I'm more like a Duracell rabbit kind of thing. Like in my hunch in the beginning, especially, is I need to just keep going, and like if the task list ends, I just keep adding things to it to a point that is just like not helpful for anybody. Remy really learns me to be like, in what do you need to do now? Like in because sometimes in my head, like in just because of how I do things, and I string multiple things together, like in because of the creative brain, but also like in what that comes with it, like in I'm dyslexic and probably a little bit ADHD and all these kind of cliches that you have, but in my brain, many things need to happen together, and like in
Yeah.
I'm fairly okay with this is the priority, but sometimes when it's a lot, I just want to like just tick things off, like in the one thing you really thought, like there's multiple things, but the thing that stands out is that what do you need to really do now, and what can wait, which is not in my
Yeah.
natural kind of thing. When I get tired, nothing can ever wait. But resetting that and also knowing I'm now tired kind of thing, what is really the need to do this? And then on top
Yeah.
of that, like in like Remy helps find a mechanism for me to come and do that. Whereas like I've never been a task list person, but like I need to, I can run a business, I run a family, I run this, like all these kind of things. So far, I've always been able to do that. But if you do a job like this, like it is just a lot. And then there's this question of where can I help, to the point that we actually now have a joint to-do list that even includes
Yeah.
major tasks we need to tick off in our personal life, but with the comfortableness
Yeah.
of a I have no shame that you see that kind of thing. But like in finding even mechanisms of because this is how I know how you operate and how your brain works. How can I like in help you there?
Amazing. I love that. I think I've definitely got a bit of a Greek brain sometimes. So yeah, somebody's come help me organise mine would be fantastic. So, do that. But it sounds like between you've had, I mean, a really positive experience of co-running the agency and like lots of learns from each other. It's still quite a rarity in the space, or even in the wider, I guess, just the wider industry, and to kind of see the co-leadership. I mean, have you guys connected with many other co-leaders, and have you found it similar sort of experiences for them, or are you guys truly kind of, I guess, a unique entity out there?
We connected with a few because we started doing posts about it, and I think only then we've
Mhm.
realized that it was a bigger kind of thing. And you see it, for me, it's less of a rarity, even though it's a
Mhm.
rarity in the form it is, but because of course of the creative world, I'm very used to creative teams
Yeah.
and those kind of
Yeah.
things. So actually people solving something in a duo in my brain just makes sense. Therefore, for me,
Mhm.
it took probably a little while that people just find it so weird. And I'm very okay with, and that's with everything in life. It's not for everybody, and that's
Mhm.
fine. I do think more people would benefit from it. An, an ex-colleague who's also a friend of mine, like in television, Thomas, run like in an agency together, but then within
Mhm.
this kind of process as well, and like in sharing some of the thoughts about it, I connected with a guy who calls Cameron Gunn, and like in having the conversations and those things have really helped. They do split the role, like most people
Yeah.
do. But what I think is nice about co-leadership is that whatever works for the duo is
Yeah.
probably the right kind of things. The one thing we
Yeah.
have noticed is, like most people kind of say, you need to, like your values need to stem a line because else it's not going to work. Like most of them are really nice to hang out with because most of them don't really have a massive ego because else you don't really want to job
Mhm.
share. But also you need to really respect each other's craft. Like there needs to be a respect for each other's crafts or each other's skills or those kind of things. Like, and it's
Mhm.
not just enough of oh, you align on values and you want somebody to bounce it off with. If because there's highs and lows, and in the lows, you don't really want to come to a place where you start doubting each other or where like in that is missing. So I think those basic principles probably are right for all of the people we met and talked through. But then the
Mhm.
practicality is different, and that's only healthy. I definitely wouldn't recommend for everybody to do it today.
Um, I think it's quite similar to like, when someone starts a company and they started with co-founders.
Yeah.
Like there's a basis. If you co-found a business with somebody, there's a basis of we like working together. We're aligned on values. You might run this part of the business. I might run
Yeah.
that part of the business, and you respect each other at a level of like I can work with this person maybe for the next 10 years
Mhm.
or the next decade, and that's the foundation. You wouldn't start a business with someone where you're like, oh, like I
Yeah.
don't know if you're like quite the right person. Like
Yeah.
there's a commitment there, right?
Yeah.
So
At this moment,
I
you
look at
say we
it
have
a bit
six
like
years
that.
left.
There's a countdown. But like there's a really interesting thing in that people look at co-founders as
Mm.
being really like it makes sense to
Yeah.
everyone, but co-leaders seem so weird and different.
Yeah.
But I put them in the same kind of bucket of like
Mhm.
if you find someone that you can co-run a thing with, it needs to be almost on that co-founder level of like I can really work well with you, and
Yeah.
we might do different things, but I respect your ability to do those different things, and
Mhm.
the strengths that you bring might be different from the strengths that I bring, but we can work and mesh them really well together.
Amazing. And I guess kind of moving forward, the future for the two of you and future platform. I mean, what's in the pipeline there for the pair of you?
There's like at the moment the industry, it's a tricky one because like I think within digital, it's a tricky industry at the moment. So there will be what do we wanna do kind of thing, but then also like what is right in the industry now,
Mhm.
like in both of us are doing this for like in 20 odd years kind of thing. So there is a bit of a like in how do you see that happening and other kind of things in like there are no plans for either of us to kind of say like we're gonna break up this dynamic. However that shapes it, however that goes, it's like it's a proper evolution. I think in the beginning as well when we like we've gone through that doing two different disciplines together, working that way, working on pitches, like in working on like business challenges and those things into that, like in running the business and making changes there, and like in setting up a vision, and like in changing the ways of working, and like in making that run. We're now coming also almost in a phase where it is and how does that evolve? But it isn't like that's not just a milestone moment kind of thing. That is more of a trajectory path that is be going on, and that's just a natural kind of thing.
Yeah, it's good. I think the next phase is adapting as the industry is changing, which is, I think, the what Greet is poking at there. It's like the industry is evolving. Things like AI are changing how our world works and our clients' worlds work, and we're navigating that change, and we're trying to adapt to that change. So that's the thing we're spending a lot of time focusing on. Is like, what does that mean, and what's that going to look like in the next 3 years, and how do we kind of position ourselves and the company to take us, like, to be valuable in the next kind of 3 years.
And
one thing we also have done is we kept still we whilst we run the business together, we still very much kept in tap with like in the strategy side of the business and the design side of business, which probably also adds a bit of an extra flavor on it. It isn't in the beginning people ask that where it is so the previous person's job is now divided by two people. It's like in yes, but also other tasks were added on top of that, which even positions that particular thing. Because for me, there is even the question of, so what does this mean for us? What does this mean for the business? What does this mean for wider what we do in design? Probably for Remy, it's the same in strategy and products. So like in things like that make the question even more rich.
Yeah. And there's a final question I wanted to ask you both is there, or like, what would be the one thing that you wish you'd have known prior to embarking on this co-leadership journey that you now know now?
But you do have time. I think in the beginning we added so many like in tasks to the list, and we went because of the kind of people we are, which I don't know if we knew that in such extent, but like in the moment we said yes to it, we both kind of know we're in, and we're not like in half job kind of people. So we directly went for it. And so I'd almost like in the University of Life, without like in putting a cliche in it, to just do those kind of things where it is, I think we're okay where we are working together and those kind of things, that it is like this is urgent and this needs this kind of thing. Well, there is also a thing of and this can take a bit of time, and we don't need to directly jump on that and fix that or solve that. Like so we in that way have like maturity is the wrong thing, but like we definitely went at it, and that's great. That made it fun, and we learned a lot. But there is also a bit of how can we do that in a way that is just sustainable and healthy, and like doesn't take the fun out of it. And it doesn't mean that there isn't fun, but like because we just try to do so much, like in keeping that balance a bit.
Yeah. Not overloading too much, biting everything. It sounds like you covered it all, but yeah, it's probably quite a mountain to climb. What about yourself, Remy?
I wish I'd known earlier. So we've got a document called the win list, which is running track of all of the high points and all of the positive points in between things. So like people always remember things like winning a pitch, for example, but there's tons of stuff that happens on the day-to-day in between those moments. So like it might be we've done some training with the team, it might be we've promoted someone, it might be we've solved the problem we've been trying to solve for 3 months, it might be whatever it is. But keeping track of, like, it's been a good reminder of keeping track of the journey, because if you're only ever on it's a peak, or it's, oh no, everything's gone wrong, and then you go, oh, we're back to a peak again. Like those massive swings of ups and downs, just keeping track of the wins along the way. Like I wish we'd done that like almost from the start, because it's so easy to forget all the stuff that you've achieved and all the stuff that you've done through your time working together. So that's been that for me. That's been the better. I wish I had that list from day one, because, like Greek said, we moved so fast.
Yeah.
Like looking back and trying to remember all the stuff that we did is like, oh God, I wish we'd written some of that down. So yeah, that's the one for me, I think.
Amazing. I love the sound of the win list. I think that's like a good one for most businesses out there to definitely, celebrate the little things as well as kind of the big wins, especially in such challenging market conditions, I guess. Like, it's not important not to lose sight of it. But no, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for both joining me here and running through everything. It's great to hear more about both of you and kind of the successful journey that you're on together at Future Platforms. And I think everyone's excited to see what you guys do next, and maybe learn some more from you guys and your co-leadership style.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.